Hey everyone, this is StarCraft Dad, and today we'll be looking at another replay sent to us by GenDisarray, this time playing Protoss in the red. GenDisarray likes to play random, came up with Protoss versus Protoss, and is deciding to do a Cannon Rush, so another rush build from GenDisarray. So the Protoss Cannon Rush is pretty simple. You build a pylon and a forge as soon as you can, and then you start building pylons and cannons in your opponent's base. So the key aspect is to send out your starting probe as soon as you can. As you can see over here, this game is pretty short, so we're going to run through it twice, once from GenDisarray's point of view on the executing side, and once from the project's view on the defending side. So it's pretty important for GenDisarray to get to his opponent's base as soon as he can, so we can start building pylons and cannons. So one thing I might advise here is to send possibly a second scouting probe to get to these other locations. As you can see here, he's going to be quite limited in when that how quickly that probe can make it to a base, given that there's often 4 different starting locations on these 1v1 maps. And as you can see here, it doesn't take long for this forge to get completed. On the speediest side, your attacking probe could build its pylon while this forge is building, and then as soon as this forge is done, you could start building cannons. So it might make sense to send out a second probe to help scout to get to your opponent's base sooner. The next thing we're going to see here is GenDisarray is going to try to sneak into this base by the project, but he sneaks in pretty far, and the project is going to be able to see this and come in here. Now, one of the things that GenDisarray could have done here as well is he had a good idea of putting a pylon back here in these hidden bush areas where his opponent won't be able to see it until he goes into these behind these bushes here, which is a good idea. But the other thing is that this is one of the first places to look for a proxy pylon, and as soon as the defending player sees a probe dash into these bushes back here, the first thing he's going to think is, you're going to be putting a pylon back there, either for cannon rushing or for a proxy pylon to warp in units using, say, like a 4-gate strategy, which is pretty common in Protoss versus Protoss. Another thing GenDisarray could do here, as you can see, he's just left this probe here. In reality, he could have gone ahead and taken this probe and wandered around the base, and if this pylon comes under attack, he can always cancel it and place another pylon somewhere else in the base. So with this one probe, GenDisarray can keep his opponent pretty busy trying to stave off this proxy pylon around the base, but instead he ends up just leaving it here and ends up getting killed by this probe. As soon as this battle starts happening, GenDisarray should have just taken this probe and left, because if anything, he needs this probe to survive so he can build cannons as soon as this pylon is done. Now in this case, he may have seen that this group was coming in to kill this pylon. Now he's got a split second here before this pylon finishes that he can tell that it's going to be under attack by all of these probes. So one thing he could do here, again looking at his minerals, he's at 170, is he could cancel it and gain some of those minerals back. In this case, you see that he doesn't do that, and he ends up losing the pylon wholesale. It finishes building, and these probes are just going to take it out, and that's just kind of a loss. So another advantage of sending that second probe to scout, like I mentioned before, is that in case your first probe dies, you'll have a backup to go to the base immediately. It's possible that your first probe might go in. Your first probe might go in and place the pylon and then die, kind of like his probe did, but then the second one can come in and place a cannon after the pylon is done. So by micromanaging 2 probes, you can keep your opponent pretty busy. As you can see here, his opponent had to take a bunch of probes off the line to take care of this pylon. But he's continuing on with this cannon rushing strategy and bringing in 2 probes now, like I mentioned before, as a possible improvement on the strategy. And speed up the time a little bit. So you can see his opponent is going for his normal build, and he did a good idea here. Now he's coming over to this corner to try to sneak in a pylon there. Boop. And then using this other probe to kind of, this probe kind of got lost here. But you'll see now that he's got 2 probes in the base. He's got a pretty good ability to build things and keep his opponent on his toes. So you can see here that the the project is focused on trying to take out this probe, the second probe that General Disarray sent out, and he's not watching his mini-map and noticing that there's a probe already in the base, and most likely this is a cannon. If you see some sparklies, that says that there was something building here, and you start to see more sparklies, that's not not good if you look at the vision for the project. So General Disarray, as you saw at the beginning, had kind of a wasted attempt at the beginning, but by bringing in two different probes at the same time, he was able to distract his opponent enough that he could get started on building this first pylon and then the cannons behind it. And that delayed time actually gave him a lot of money that he could go ahead and build several cannons at once, which is great for this strategy. And then he's just going to continue building cannons, and then a pylon, and then more cannons, and then a pylon, and creep into the base. And unless his opponent is on their toes, they're going to be in trouble. So that's pretty much the game in a nutshell right there. So we're going to take this and rewind it and look at this game from the project's point of view on how he could have defended against this. So whenever you're playing against Protoss, there's a possibility that there's going to be some cheese involved, and it's only due diligence for you to be scouting your base and making sure that you look out for any proxy pylons. Again, proxy pylons placed near your base or in your base by your opponent, can be used for cannon rushes, but they can also be used for a warp-in location for a 4-gate warp gate build. So it's not uncommon to see that, and it's a good idea to scout those out in any case whenever you're playing against Protoss. Looking at the project right now, he's pretty focused just on this screen right here, what he can see, and given the long distances between the bases, that's fair. I don't think that he needs to really be worrying right now at this point for any probes coming in, but pretty soon here he should start to kind of keep an eye out. Doesn't hurt to go ahead and send a probe out. If his opponent had been at a closer base location, like here or here, as you can see, General Disarray has already scouted one location, so there's like actually a 66% chance that the project would already have a probe in his base from his opponent, who could have snuck over here. You can see the project can't even see that. We'll switch to the project's view. So as soon as you see any kind of probe in the base, you want to check that out. That's a pretty big warning sign. And the project does just that, especially if you see a probe dashing behind these rocks. You want to make sure you see where this probe is going, where he's been, and to see if he's dropping down any pylons, and take care of those pylons quickly with a handful of probes. Now in this case, or a handful of workers, in this case the project kind of overcommitted here. You can see there's this extra probe dancing back and forth that's not doing any damage. But in this case, there's no other probe coming into the base, he didn't necessarily need to kill that pylon quite that quickly. He could have used a few less probes, but regardless, you should be able to stave off any pylons coming into the base just with your workers. And one thing to remember here is that while you are in your base going for a standard build, your opponent's base is hampered. Here General Disarray just has a forge and a pylon. That could be another key off or another thing to scout for when you're going to your opponent's base. If you go into their base and all you see is a pylon and a forge, that's a pretty good sign that they may be going for some kind of cannon rush. The next thing that the project could have done, I think, to defend himself against this is, we'll rewind the clock just a little bit here. So at this point, he's staved off one pylon and one probe, and he's gone into the base, and he's seen, going to the project's view, he got into the base, put down his proxy pylon, which is nice. He's going for some kind of 4-gate build. But the other thing he needs to do is he needs to be watching out for any kind of continuation of that cannon rush. So he needs to still be scouting, have somebody up front at the front of his base to look for any kind of probes or suspicious activity. And as you can see here, you need to keep your eye on the mini-map, because these pylons are given away on the mini-map. If you look over here on the mini-map side, you can see some red, and this red is not moving, and that's a sign of something being built. and just a quick glance down at the base would have revealed that something's going on here, and you can even click on the item and see that it's, oh, this is a photon cannon being built. So the project has, even at this point, he's got some time. He could bring in a bunch of probes, kill off this powering pylon that's powering all these cannons, and I think probably would have been able to hold this off, or at least given it a good run. The other thing that he could have done, if you look up here, he's got a lot of minerals banked, is he could have built 1 or 2 zealots from his first gateway, and that would have kept these probes busy and distracted them from placing their pylons or placing their cannons. So, you know, a single zealot or 2, just, I mean, especially if you're seeing something come in like this. You know, he saw the proxy pylon before. He went into the base and didn't see very much going on in the base. You know, just keeping your eye out for this. I mean, you know, somewhere in there, the project is probably pretty frustrated at the end of this game because, you know, this is cheese, and he scouted it, and he knows that he can hold it off, and he could have held it off just fine, but because he got distracted by this secondary probe, which, you know, as we mentioned before, is a great idea for someone executing a cannon rush to have some other distractions on the field, because this worked, you know, perfectly in the case of General Disarray, because the project was totally distracted with trying to keep his base going and trying to keep track of this one probe, and didn't even notice a base building inside of his base. So there you go, nice little rundown of both the attacker and the defender. And if there'd be any advice to someone executing a cannon rush, I'd say just make your decision really early and scout with 2 probes to get into the base as soon as you can. And don't be afraid to put down a couple of pylons and cancel them if you need to keep the opponent on their toes. The thing you're trying to do is distract them and get them on tilt, get them to break away from their build that they're focused on doing. And as a defender, I would say, you know, do what the project did at the beginning of the game, and, you know, scout, look out for proxy pylons. If you see an enemy probe in your base, you know, keep tabs on them and walk around with them, and make sure you check out the mini-map to see if there's any red showing up that you didn't foresee. And go ahead and build a couple of, at least 1 zealot or a couple of defending units just to kind of clean things up if anything pops up. But besides that, you know, as a defender in a rush, you know, if you stay with your balanced build and you don't, you know, you stay calm, because when you pull out of the rush, once you've held it off, you will be ahead of your opponent, and instead of you giving a GG, they'll be giving you a GG. So that's it for today's replay, and this is StarCraft Dad signing off, and we'll talk to you guys next time.